Hello and welcome everyone to another edition of Senior Moments. I'm Lou Beccaria, your producer and the host of the show. For those of you who are with us for the very first time, welcome. We hope that you'll be frequent viewers and subscribe to our channel. It's free. And for those of you who have been with us before, welcome back. Regretfully, too often people who have retired from their long working careers of 40, 50 years or more feel in their post-employment years like they're being put out to pasture, so to speak. They long to continue to feel useful and productive and to do things to make a difference. Some have so-called bucket lists of things that they've wanted to do for a very long time, but life has just gotten in the way and have just never gotten around to doing those things. Our show today is about retirees attacking those bucket lists and in some cases actually reinventing themselves in some form during the senior chapter of their lives so that they can become and feel vibrant and joyful and still productive. My guest to help us deal with this topic is a longtime professional colleague and friend of mine, Linda Lysakowski, who's actually not only accomplished things on her bucket list in her retirement, but also has reinvented herself by taking on new challenges in her senior years. So Linda, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here with us, all the way from Kansas City, Missouri. So great. How's the weather out there, by the way, in Kansas City?
Weather is, well, for me, it's very hot because I moved here from the desert and I'm used to very dry climate. So I have to get myself reaccustomed to dampness and, and a little bit of a different weather situation, but you adapt.
Good. Well, let's start off. I'm going to ask you about, tell us about your career or careers and, how many have you had over the years?
Well, I guess as you can see, I have a lot of years behind me. And my first career was really at the age of 16, I got married. And at the age of 23, I had my fifth child. And then later on, when I was 31, I had a sixth child. So my first career was really raising a family. And I do consider that a career. Anyone who's going through raising children, it is a career. It's a full-time job. But then when my youngest son went off to school, I decided that maybe it was time to get out there in the real work world and find out what it was like. So I started as a part-time teller and I spent a total of 11 years in banking for two different banks and had a variety of positions within those banks. And then I decided it was time to go back to school. In my late 30s, I went to undergraduate school and did it part-time while I was working in a full-time job and raising all those kids. So I found out that going to school, I really didn't really enjoy banking as much as I thought I would. So as soon as I graduated from undergraduate school, I got a job in development, my first job in fundraising for the school that I graduated from. And I spent 5 years doing fundraising for both a university and a museum. And then I decided to start my own business. In 1993, I started my consulting practice. And I've been doing it ever since. But that practice has changed a lot over the years. So I've kind of reinvented myself quite a few times. But it's a variety of careers, but they were all fun and I learned something in each one of them.
Was there one of those careers that you enjoyed the most?
Oh, I think definitely the consulting business was what I enjoyed the most out of um, consulting for capital campaigns and other fundraising for nonprofit organizations. And there were things I liked about all of my careers. Obviously, raising a family is a big accomplishment. And as
Yeah.
your kids grow up and get older and have families of their own, you really feel like you did accomplish something very much. And now believe it or not, I have 4 living children out of the 6 that I had, 9 grandchildren, 14 great grandchildren, and 2 great grandchildren. So that's been very rewarding. That was a very rewarding for me. In banking, what I enjoyed the most, I held a variety of positions, but I really enjoyed being a private banker, when I started that, it was very new, I believe. And I worked for a Philadelphia-based bank who I believe was the first one to initiate a private banking program. And I really enjoyed that because I helped what were considered to be high balance customers who had at least $100,000. That doesn't sound like as much in today's dollars, but I worked with the high balance customers, trying to help them with their banking needs and, of course, promoting new products that the bank had. And I enjoyed that out of all the banking jobs that I held, much more than I did some of the other areas. And then working as a fundraiser for the university and the museum, I really enjoyed accomplishing something that worked on several capital campaigns for the university and the museum. And it was really a thrill to be able to help donors invest in something that they really believed in. But consulting, I think, really was the most rewarding for me because over the years, since 1993, I have had clients all over the world. I got to go to Egypt, Bermuda, England, Mexico, Canada, and worked with such a variety of clients. And I got to meet people that I would never have met any other way and help them with their needs. And they're all different. Every nonprofit I worked with was very different. Some were churches, some were social service agencies, some were arts groups. And it was just a thrill to me to help those nonprofits fulfill their mission by raising the money that they needed to do. So I think that's been probably the most rewarding out of all my careers, other than being raising a
Raising a family.
family.
Yeah. And you had such a large family. It's like being the head of a small corporation there.
I could, yeah.
So now that you're retired, how long have you been retired actually from your consulting career, or are you still going strong?
Well, actually, I don't think I'm ever going to retire. I've reinvented my career a little bit in consulting, but I have a friend who's 89 years old and still working. He's a few years older than I am. And both he and I often talk about we're going to die with our boots on. We really, neither of us want to retire. And I said one day to my son, I don't know what people do when they retire and, just have nothing to do all day. And he said, they drive their mothers around. That's what they do. Because my son is actually 3 out of my 4 living children are retired. So I'm still going. But I really don't want to retire because I love what I do. My business has changed a lot. I've reinvented the way I've structured my business in many degrees, but I'm still consulting, and a lot of it now is volunteerism. I volunteer to help certain agencies with their fundraising, but I'm still have some active clients as well.
Yeah. Uh, it- how has your business changed? You've alluded to your business has changed.
Yeah, well, it was funny because I always tell people when they're in this career, they need to not only set goals for the organizations they work for, but they need to set goals for themselves. And sometimes I was reflecting on this as I was doing a presentation on this topic. And I said, my goals initially, one of the reasons I wanted to get into consulting is I wanted to travel. And like I said, I did get to go to Egypt and Mexico and Canada and Bermuda and various different places. Um, and that was one of my goals is I wanted to work with a variety of clients and I wanted to travel. As I got older, and as travel got to be much more of a pain than it used to be, um, then I started saying, I don't want to do all this traveling anymore. So I started doing a lot more virtual work. In fact, I had one client that I helped with I think it was a $4 or $6 million capital campaign that I never actually met with in person. I mean, I met them when I was speaking at a conference. They hired me, but the whole time I was working with them, it was all done virtually.
How
We
about
did, everything online. So that's one of the things I did to reinvent myself. And then I decided that I had an awful lot of knowledge in my head. And consulting is great because you do get to meet with a variety of clients. But I thought I could reach so much more people if I did public speaking and if I wrote books. So that was kind of my way of leaving a legacy for the profession. It meant a lot to me as I thought, and one of my biggest thrills is just about a week or so ago, somebody contacted me and said, I have your book, The Development Plan, and it's sitting on my shelf. It's all dog-eared and underlined and highlighted. And I get, I have learned so much from that book. And I wrote that book like 20, 30 years ago, I guess. And
Wow.
I thought, oh my goodness, people are still contacting me and saying how much they learned from my writing. So to me, that's leaving a legacy for the profession that I really care about. And if you have a profession that you've worked in a long time, you probably have a lot of knowledge up here that maybe you can't pass along in person, but maybe you want to write a book or do public speaking about that topic. So there's so much that we have to give to the younger generation and even some of the older generation that still wants to learn too.
How did it make you feel when you were going through these various um, realms of reinventing yourself, reinventing your business? I mean, psychologically, what was going on with you inside?
Well, some of it was a little frustrating as far as like the legal structure of my business. I started out as a subchapter S corporation, and then I became a partnership. And my former business partner and I just had different ways of thinking. We're still friends after all these years. In fact, I'm talking with her tonight, and we still get in touch with each other. But and then I became an LLC. Then I became a sole proprietor. So all that legal mumbo jumbo drove me crazy. But reinventing myself to do what I felt I wanted to do with my time and with my talent, whatever talent I have, I think was a challenge to me. And I said, well, how can I make this? How can I reach more people? So that's why I started the writing and the public speaking and focusing more on that than I actually do the hands-on consulting these days.
Yeah. One of the things that you told me, Linda, when we were initially talking about this show, was that another way in which you reinvented yourself is you went back to school at the age of 79, I think.
Yes. And most people thought I was a little crazy, but I got my undergraduate degree in 1988 and always thought, gee, it'd be nice to have a master's degree. Not that I'm ever going to, quote, do anything with it, but just to, for the sake of having it. So at the age of 79, I decided to pursue a master's degree. I graduated when I was 81. And right before graduation, while I was in the middle of doing my thesis, I fell and broke my shoulder and couldn't type. And I thought, oh my gosh, now what am I going to do? But luckily, I had some very good friends who said, Linda, you just dictate the paper that you need and we'll type it for you. So I found that I was able to graduate at the age of 81. And it was just a really thrilling. Have always been a believer in lifelong learning, I guess. Took me 7 years to get through undergraduate school because I was working full time, raising a family, and carrying three majors at one time, which
Three
most
majors at
sane
one
people
time?
wouldn't do.
That's unheard of. How could you do
I
that?
know. Well, I started because I was banking when I started school. So I started with a degree in banking and finance. And I thought, I hate to say this, but banking stuff was just boring to me. And I thought I was going to a Franciscan university where I was required to take two theology and two philosophy courses. And I thought, oh, this stuff is much more fun than banking. So I decided to add a degree in theology, philosophy. And then I went into the registrar. My job at the bank changed, and I moved into the marketing department. And I said, I probably really ought to add communications as another major. And the registrar looked at me and said, Linda, I hate to ask you this, but what on earth are you going to be qualified to do with a degree in banking and finance, theology, philosophy, and communications? The only thing I can think of is you could get a job as a televangelist. And I said, so 2 weeks after graduation, I went in to see the registrar and I said, I'm doing the next best thing. I'm going to be raising money for this Catholic university. So I did get to use all of those uh, majors that I had. And then when I decided to go to graduate school, I thought, well, I'm certainly not going into banking. And so I decided to get my master's degree in theology from the Franciscan School of Theology at University of San Diego. And it was all done online, which is really great. So I didn't ever see the school until I went for graduation. But I think lifelong learning is, to me, it's so rewarding. And yes, people said to me, what the heck are you doing at your age getting a master's degree? What are you going to do with it? And I said, I'm not going to do anything. It's just for me. It's for my personal satisfaction. And I really enjoyed it. And I got to meet some wonderful people. I'm still friends with some of my classmates. We communicate back and forth, even though we're in a variety of different states. But to me, it was really satisfying. And I think no matter how much you know about any subject, there's always more to learn about it.
Yeah.
So I really highly recommend going to school and doing it online if you can, because that way you don't have to go off to a classroom every night or every
Yeah.
couple days or something. So doing it online, and there's so many great opportunities now to get degrees online. So I definitely recommend um, lifelong learning to anybody. And that's why part of what I did when I reinvented my business was I wanted to get away from doing so much traveling and so much consulting in person. So I developed 18 online courses, which I have on I have several different websites, but on my Learn with Linda online website, I have 18 online courses. And I thought, well, here's a way I can put my knowledge to work, help people in this profession. And I'm still, involved, but not as actively going out and traveling all over the country or all over the world anymore.
Yeah.
Because online learning is just the greatest to me.
Linda, are there any particular challenges of uh, reinventing yourself at a later age than, going to school in your earlier years?
Mhm. I think there's a lot of challenges at any age when you're starting a business, no matter how old you are. But when you're older, I think the challenge is number one, are your health, to make sure that you're healthy. And I was living by myself after my husband passed away. And within a couple months, I had two bad falls. One of them, as I mentioned, I broke my shoulder. And and then right after that, my landlady decided that she was going to sell the house I was living in. So I had to move. And I decided to come and live with family. And it's been wonderful. I'm here almost a year now in Kansas City. And we have four generations in our household: myself, my son, my granddaughter, and her family. It's their house. And she has three children and two dogs and a cat. So there's never a dull moment here. But I think the challenges are maybe some people looking at you like you're crazy when you want to reinvent yourself and still be involved and still do some work. So that's probably one challenge, that maybe some people don't take you seriously. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I volunteered to do something for my a church group I belong to, and I'm giving an hour-long presentation. And somebody said to me, "Can you talk for a whole hour?" I said, "Well, the challenge is talking for no more than an hour, because I could go on for 3 or 4 hours." And I'm doing another presentation, which is going to be a 4 hour presentation. I won't be talking that whole time. But so sometimes people think that, are you able to do this? And why are you doing this? And I got that question a lot, like, why are you still working? Are you crazy? Most people are sitting back and enjoying retirement. But working for yourself, you can still enjoy retirement. My husband retired at the age of 63, and we both loved traveling, and that's when we moved to Nevada from Pennsylvania. And he, of course, was retired, so he had all the time in the world, and I worked for myself. So if I felt like taking 3 or 4 days or a week off to travel with him, I could do it.
Yeah,
And that's one of the advantages of having your own business. You can set your own hours and take off when you want to.
sure. Linda, is there anything left on your bucket list of things that
Well,
you would love to do? You've done so
well,
much.
not a whole lot. I would still like to do some traveling, but sometimes traveling is just getting, um, it's so much of a hassle these days. So there isn't a whole lot. I'm still writing though. I just have one book that is now in layout, and I already, now that that one's being laid out and designed, I'm ready to start my next one probably today or tomorrow. Yet I might start working on. I have an outline done, and I'm also co-authoring two books with one woman that I co-authored with before. We're writing a book, and you're probably going to love this. This working title is The Mud Pie Factory: What Two Old Broads Learned About Fundraising, because she's almost as old as I am, and we both had a lot of experiences in our career. So we're going to write about the good, the bad, and the ugly part of fundraising, I guess. And then I'm co-authoring with two other women a third edition of my book on raising money for your business community. So I still want to write more. I have lots and lots of things to do. And I have my own podcast series, as you know, Lou, because you're going to be a guest next week on my podcast. So I just started that recently. That was one of the things on my bucket list that, I know a lot of people with a lot of experience in fundraising and nonprofit management. And so I'm interviewing them. And then I have another channel because I developed more of an interest in the spiritual side of my life. And maybe that comes with age as you start thinking about the hereafter a little bit more than you did before. So I also have a podcast on spirituality, and I've written a number of books in the spiritual realm as well as the nonprofit sector. So I guess my bucket list is to continue writing, continue teaching in both of those areas.
Right. It's it's amazing what you've accomplished, and you're obviously a very determined woman to be able to do all these things and staying physically fit and being able to have all that energy. That's my hat's off to you. That's terrific.
Well, I try to, some days the physical side of me is starting to catch up with me, but I thought, no, I'm not going to let it beat me. I'm still ready. My mind is still there, so I'm going to go as long as I can.
Yeah. Well, Linda, we're almost out of time, so thank you very, very much for giving us your time. And it's been very, very educational. And I know that our viewers are really going to get an awful lot out of this. And certainly you're an inspiration for people in their senior years of how to be productive, how to find joy in those years, and how to accomplish those bucket list things.
Yeah,
So
and,
thank you
and if
very much.
all any of your listeners are thinking about, do I have a book in me? I highly encourage you to think about writing because you probably have a lot of experience to give people. And in addition to my own writing, I've served as a writing coach and editor. I still do editing for other authors. And right now I have a friend who's publishing his first book that we hope is going to be out this week. And I think a lot of people have a lot of information in their head that they don't think of, and get it out now while you can. And so I highly encourage people to think about writing.
That's great advice. Okay, well, thank you again, Linda. We really appreciate it. Well,
Okay, well,
folks,
it's been great.
that's about all that we have for Senior Moments today. My thanks to Linda Lysakowski for her insights and tremendous insights into how to make our post-employment years satisfying and joyful with a sense of certainly being meaningful and productive and making a difference. So my hope is that as a result of this show, you've taken away a tidbit or two that will give you some more insights and maybe some motivation to attack those bucket list things and maybe even reinventing yourself. If there's someone else in your life that also is in that post work years, share this information with them. Maybe that can help them as well. So until next time on Senior Moments, remember folks, play nice and be kind to each other, especially to seniors. See you later.